Buongiorno a tutti. È per me un onore, a nome di Confindustria Ceramica e dei miei colleghi, porgere il benvenuto a tutti voi, all'architetto Murcutt, premio Pritzker del 2002, e al professor Francesco Dalcò, che introdurrà questa Lectio Magistralis e presenterà dovutamente l'architetto. Vorrei solamente fare 3 brevi annotazioni. La prima è che con quella di oggi Cersaie ha realizzato ben 7 Lectio Magistralis consecutive negli ultimi 7 anni con altrettanti premi Pritzker. Credo che sia un record che nessuna fiera al mondo abbia mai realizzato. Questo è ovviamente per noi un motivo di grande orgoglio e voglio appunto allora ringraziare il professor Francesco Dalcò e tutti coloro che hanno reso possibile tutto questo. La seconda nota immediatamente conseguente consiste nella nostra idea di Confindustria Ceramica di rendere Cersaie un luogo di riflessione e di dibattito culturale sulla grande architettura mondiale, a partire appunto dalle testimonianze dei protagonisti. Cersaie è anche questo e, come in tutte le cose che organizza, punta a farlo al massimo dei livelli. La terza e ultima è relativa a una recente intervista del nostro illustre ospite a un quotidiano italiano, dove lei, architetto, ha sottolineato che nei suoi progetti, tutti fortemente caratterizzati dall'attenzione all'ambiente, predilige e usa materiali naturali, tra i quali anche la ceramica. La ringraziamo per questa citazione che testimonia l'impegno e lo sforzo dell'industria ceramica italiana verso lo sviluppo di materiali, tecnologie e soluzioni sempre più attente alla salute del pianeta nel quale viviamo. Non aggiungo altro e passo la parola al professor Francesco Dalcò.
Possiamo cominciare. Buongiorno a tutti. È come al solito un grande piacere dire alcune parole sugli ospiti che ogni anno intervengono alle cerimonie di inaugurazione del Cersaie. Ed è un piacere molto particolare farlo oggi perché la presenza di Murcutt è per me in particolare, ma immagino anche per molti di voi, davvero un'occasione particolare. Molti di voi, suppongo, spero soprattutto i giovani studenti, avranno avuto modo, durante i loro viaggi di formazione, durante i viaggi estivi, di recarsi ad Atene. È molto probabile che i più giovani abbiano ripercorso la strada che porta all'Acropoli e spero che alcuni di voi abbiano notato di percorrere un percorso del tutto particolare, fatto di frammenti antichi, montati con una cura ammirevole, di brandelli altrimenti destinati a scomparire, di cose del passato in apparenza prive di valori, ma rimesse insieme in un selciato a disegnare il percorso che porta a uno dei monumenti dell'architettura di sempre, l'Acropoli appunto. Questi piccoli brandelli hanno acquistato un nuovo senso. L'architetto che fece tutto ciò, che ridisegnò il modo in cui noi guardiamo questo monumento per il quale non vi sono parole, l'Acropoli appunto, si chiamava Dimitris Pikionis. E Pikionis ha lavorato tutta la sua vita in Grecia e tutta la sua vita l'ha dedicata alla lingua che conosceva, alla lingua greca. Quando parliamo di lingua non parliamo soltanto di un idioma, di parole, verbi, ma di un rapporto con il mondo in cui quella lingua si è formata. Parlare una lingua perfettamente è un dono che non solo ci permette di comunicare tra di noi, ma di avere un rapporto amichevole con il mondo in cui noi viviamo. Questa insistenza, radicale insistenza, ad avere un rapporto con il mondo, con una propria lingua, con una lingua che apre il mondo, è un dono di alcuni grandi architetti. È il dono di Glenn Murcutt. Ha costruito Glenn soltanto in Australia. Le sue opere sono opere di non grandi dimensioni, ma sono state costruite lì e parlano la lingua non già di quel luogo, ma ciò che la lingua implica, la conoscenza di un mondo. E sono fatte di conoscenze di questo mondo. Vedete questa buffa fotografia che mi è stata fornita da una cara amica, in cui sono ritratti due amici. Davanti nella canoa riconoscerete Renzo Piano, in mezzo Milli e dietro, vestiti tutti e due da come siamo soliti immaginare siano vestiti gli australiani, Piano e Murcutt, due architetti diversissimi. Piano ha costruito in ogni continente, le sue opere parlano di tantissimi luoghi diversi. Glenn Murcutt ha costruito soltanto in Australia e ha costruito seguendo la perfezione della sua lingua. Non voglio rubargli tempo, so che vi mostrerà molte cose, ma voglio farvi vedere alcuni suoi disegni, semplici elevazioni, edifici che si adagiano, spesso con tratti sensuali, perché sensuale è il rapporto che l'architettura ha con la terra, con i luoghi. È un rapporto, quando è fraterno, un rapporto sensuale. Sono disegni allungati, sono figure allungate che si protendono sul suolo, ma ciò che voglio richiamare all'attenzione soprattutto dei giovani è questo modo di disegnare i progetti. Per un architetto, sempre in tutta la storia, ci sono delle pagine definitive anche in Leon Battista Alberti, il padre di tutti noi. Per un architetto il passaggio fondamentale è quando l'opera lascia le tue mani, entra nel mondo, diventa patrimonio di altri, è usato da altri. E coloro che lo usano, coloro che ne usufruiranno, ma anche coloro che semplicemente le guarderanno quelle opere, non le guarderanno come tu l'hai immaginato, non le useranno come tu prevedevi. E le cose dell'architettura hanno questo particolare, unico aspetto. C'è un momento in cui lasciano le mani dell'architetto e assumono le configurazioni, gli usi, le forme che la vita ad esse attribuisce. In questi disegni di Murcutt vi è quest'ansia, vedete, di fornire opere, progetti che siano i più appropriati possibili, perché perfettamente concepiti e disegnati e costruiti nel disegnare affinché affrontino virtuosamente questo confronto col mondo, con la vita. Non vi è un solo dettaglio che sfugga all'attenzione dell'architetto. Quanto diverso questo modo di fare, questo modo di progettare da quello che siamo abituati ormai a vedere praticato da tanti altri architetti, e questo non è un giudizio di valore, questi sono più bravi o Murcutt è meno bravo, ma è un modo È un modo che implica una decisione di fondo, che è quella di tutti coloro, di tutti i grandi architetti come Picchionis, che hanno dedicato la loro vita a una lingua, nel senso che prima ho attribuito questa parola. La lingua si costruisce da soli, lavorando da soli e mettendo il proprio sapere, il proprio lavoro al servizio di tutti coloro che dovranno poi realizzare l'opera e usarla una volta in cui questa sarà uscita dal controllo nelle nostre mani, mettendoli nella condizione di farlo al meglio possibile, più amichevolmente possibile col mondo in cui sono calate. Sono accerchiati dalle annotazioni, dai dettagli. Se si dovesse parlare di un horror vacui, questa sarebbe l'espressione più appropriata per spiegare questi disegni di Murcutt. E anche gli schizzi, i primi schizzi, implicano un controllo sul farsi dell'architettura, su ogni passaggio, perché ogni passaggio conta, ogni momento conta, anche quelli che non si vedranno. L'architettura non è apparenza, l'architettura non è soltanto ciò che si vede, l'architettura è molto spesso ciò che nasconde ed è ciò che è nascosto che rende le cose appropriate alla vita. Questi disegni di Murcutt dovrebbero essere studiati con feroce attenzione all'interno delle nostre scuole di architettura. Tutti gli studenti e gli architetti dovrebbero guardarli e dovrebbero guardare il sublime distacco che vi è tra questo modo di disegnare e tutto ciò che invece noi usiamo per meccanicamente rappresentare e riprodurre. Del tutto inattuale Murcutt, come tutti i grandi, lavorano da soli e sono inattuali. Lavora solo in Australia. Le fortune degli architetti, la loro notorietà, si misura oggi dalla conoscenza planetaria dei loro lavori e delle loro opere, dal fatto che sono ubiqui, ma l'ubiquità non è fisica. L'ubiquità vera nasce soltanto dalla conoscenza profonda del proprio mestiere, dal praticarlo affinché coloro che ne possono godere vivano in pace col mondo, senza cadere vittime delle apparenze del mondo. Le architetture di Murcutt hanno questa fondamentale sincerità che nasce dal modo in cui sono concepite e nascono. Tra i tanti modelli, perché non si vive senza modelli, nessun architetto nasce senza un modello. Tra i tanti modelli che vorrei citare, ho scelto di farvi vedere a conclusione di questa breve e forse inadeguata presentazione questo piccolo edificio. Si tratta di una casa di vacanze che Miss van der Rohe costruì per una sua cara amica nei dintorni di Chicago, in un luogo non particolarmente accogliente, la casa Fansworth. Molti anni fa mi recai in un viaggio con un gruppo di studenti alla casa Fansworth e si arriva alla casa dopo aver percorso un sentiero in un bosco non particolarmente ameno e non particolarmente bello. E poi in mezzo a una radura tra queste piante che qui vedete compare improvvisamente questo piccolo oggetto, questa piccolissima casa. E il gruppo di studenti che camminava nel bosco parlando, chiacchierando, ridendo, improvvisamente ammutolì. La Fansworth è come il Partenone. Sono quelle cose che ti colpiscono una volta per tutte. Sono le cose assolutamente ben fatte. Sono le cose assolutamente appropriate. Ciò che Glenn Murcutt fa sono cose assolutamente appropriate per la nostra vita. Grazie.
I'll keep the water here, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for that very nice introduction.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me here to this amazing event. I haven't seen so many people in one room for a long time. I have the world's smallest practice, and in my practice I have various scales of work, from being single houses to, at the moment, I have under construction a mosque. When I wish to expand my practice, I take on a collaborator that I respect. And in most cases, it is my wife, Wendy Lewin, architect, who is also a sole practitioner. We then expand our practices each 100%. And that's about the level of growth I'm prepared to take. Australia is a land very large. As you can see in this slide, here is the Australia, then you can see United States down through here, and then you see Europe. There's Ireland and England and Scandinavia, Nordic region, and then coming down through into Italy and then the north coast of Africa. And it has 22 million people. In the book Kangaroo, written in the 1930s by D.H. Lawrence, he said, "It is said that man is the chief environment of man." That, thought Richard, was not true in Australia. Man was there, but unnoticeable. One of our great painters, Lloyd Rees, said, "The land made the Aboriginal people. The land is now making the people of Australia," which is extremely important to understand, that we have landscapes that are still intact, that have not been cultivated. Many are not different in terms of flora, topography, water table, water movement, hydrology, geology, as it was when Europeans came there 230 years ago. And an important understanding is that to realize that I have lived 1/3 of Europeans' occupation of Australia. Stephen Kellert, who is the Ordway Professor of Social Ecology, Yale University, wrote to me about 10 years ago. And that letter was highly significant for me, because I thought almost identically to Stephen. And I quote parts of that letter. And Stephen said, "The human body and mind evolved in a sensory-rich and challenging natural environment. Light, sounds, odours, wind, vegetation, landscape, water, animals, and more provided the context for human evolution and learning. The developments during the past 1,000 years of large-scale agriculture, industry, the megacity, has resulted in the seeming ability of our species to use its engineering prowess to dominate nature, creating the illusion of our ability to transcend our biological roots. This perspective has encouraged a view of people as outside and even above nature, with human material progress and civilization dependent on dominating the natural world. It is unreasonable to assume, however, that people's physical and mental well-being could have escaped the dictates of millions of years of evolution. Indeed, people remain highly reliant on contact with natural systems and processes to be physically and mentally functional as a whole. I continue his letter. He said, "Today, there is an emphasis on the minimizing adverse environmental and human health effects. A largely low environmental impact design perspective. By contrast, this approach has achieved little in the way of enhancing beneficial human contact with natural systems and processes. A more positive environmental impact approach, which embraces low environmental strategies, but goes beyond this limited perspective to identify ways buildings and landscapes can also foster human health, performance, and productivity by enhancing connections to the natural environment." End of quote. Yet, as David Orr has surmised, and I quote, "Most buildings reflect no understanding of ecology or ecological processes. Most tell its users that knowing where they are is unimportant. Most tell its users that energy is cheap and abundant and can be squandered. Most are provisioned with materials and water and dispose of their wastes in ways that tells its occupants that we are no longer part of the web of life. Most resonate with no part of our biology, evolutionary experience, or aesthetic sensibilities." End of quote. The reality is that practically all environmental measurement centres attention on the physical measurement of thermal performance of a building within the differing climes, and few, if any at all, give value to those abstract issues of placemaking, quality of space and of light, the quality of calm and serenity, prospect and refuge, appropriate scale, and such issues. In addition to low environmental impact design, we need to consider and respond appropriately to our culture. In Australia, of course, we have Aboriginal culture, European, Slavic, African, Polynesian, Melanesian, Asian, Nordic, Arab, the Americas, British, Irish, and more. And of course, there are the human needs and aspirations, and how close needs can meet aspirations as opposed to wants. Then there's context, responding appropriately to the cultural constructed urban, suburban, or open cultivated rural and desert environments. And we should direct planning, typologies, morphologies, scale, and materials appropriate to those contexts. Then there's the complexity of every site, its geology, soil permeability, percolation, hydrology, geomorphology, topography, surface and subwater movement. Then the flora and fauna. Australia still possesses great areas of natural native forests, animals and landscapes that have remained largely unchanged by European occupation. The flora species of a site provides information in respect to soil type, water table, annual rainfall, patterns, and altitude. The flora species attract the habitat of insects and the fauna. So, designing spaces that connect with nature provide for the observation of and respect for the native flora and fauna. Then there is the site's history. Understanding the land through the 42,000 years plus of continuous occupation by the Australian Aboriginal people, as well as the recent 230 years history of European occupation of Australia. This provides us with an understanding of the land in relation to culture and management, or the lack of appropriate management of the land. Then, assuming non-air conditioned buildings, working with the natural systems in relation to geographic locations, which includes the site's relationship to the coast or inland, the sun's path. And remember that in the southern hemisphere, the sun moves from east to west via the northern sky, as opposed to the southern sky. And there's the climatic information, wind direction, associated with coastal cyclones and categories 1 to 4, the heat, the cold, the snow, rainfall, and the varying humidity percentages, and daylight hours, and how much should or should not enter a building within that specific region, and how to harness positively and protect against negative climatic conditions. Then there's the site's relationship to latitude, whether working in the monsoonal tropical regions, the wet tropical, the subtropical, the warm temperate, the temperate, cool temperate, and hot arid climes, as well as the in-between zones. Then there's the altitude, whether it's coastal, floodplain, mountainous, tableland, or inland. All this determines the rainfall, the heat, cold, air pressure, and relative humidity percentages. And then there's the varying seasonal patterns, working with the cycles of the sun, its position in relation to latitude, hourly, daily, and seasonally. Then there's the lunar cycles that affect tidal variations. And working with ventilation, designing for the variable seasonal winds that provide natural cross-ventilation, and refusing to accept hermetically sealed windows and doors in buildings that then require buildings to have mechanical air conditioning. It is my view that buildings should leak fresh air, and your room should have varying temperatures for human body to adjust and experience for health. Then there's daylight hours, the number of days a site enjoys sunlight or cloud, and how much sunlight should enter a building for quality of light, or how little for a specific region for thermal performance and comfort. And then there's light, which should be for me natural and possess variation so as to exercise the cones and rods of the eyes. Observation and sound. From spaces, the viewing of nature and sounds, like seeing and hearing the build-up of a storm or cyclone, from the formation of the clouds, the wind force or stillness, lightning, thunder, light to destructive winds, accompanied by drenching rain of up to 300 millimeters per hour in the monsoonal tropics. Connecting to natural systems, respecting appropriately, responding to the sounds within the landscape. Observing and listening to the rain falling onto a metal roof, the sound being dampened by roof insulation. Listening to the water gurgling into gutters, then carried and falling with echoes into rainwater storage tanks for human consumption, that basic feeling of survival. Or observing and hearing an intermittent watercourse run with flowing water and cascading over rocks. Observing and listening to the silence and stillness of the calm prior to and following a storm. Observing and hearing the differing sounds of wind, rustling or whistling through the canopies of different tree species, whether the leaves or they are needles in the form of pine needles. Hearing frogs croak and insects sing at sundown, as well as warning prior to, then during and following rain. Observing and hearing birdsong at daybreak, others through the daytime and night. Observing the life and behaviour of birds in a nearby tree, or native ground dwelling or tree climbing animals. Then there's smelling, having protected openings from rain, harnessing prevailing winds, allowing for the entry of controlled natural airflow. Experiencing that beautiful smell of freshly falling rain onto native leaf litter, grass, paving, and even the ground surfaces of macadam being carried by the movement of air into a building. The smell of perfumed native flowering plants carried by prevailing winds, entering into the building or passing over a body of water. And then finally, of course, there are the spaces, the quality of spaces revealed by light and comfort through natural ventilation. Spaces designed to include the qualities of prospect, refuge, and serenity. And as Luz Barrigan said, and I quote, "Any work of architecture that is designed without serenity in mind is, in my view, a mistake. And when serenity possesses joy, it is ultimate." End of quote. Then there's the pragmatic. Materials, choosing appropriate and readily available to a region, making responsible choices, whether for durability, structure, finishes, or the combination of these, and insurance avoidance of rainforest timbers. Selecting materials and combinations for their structural and thermal performance, as well as for their qualitative properties. Timber can be an excellent and sustainable material, subject to it being harvested at a lesser rate than its production growth rate. Trees, for their first 20 years of life, taking carbon dioxide and return oxygen, From 20 years of age onward, the divesting of bark and leaves is in approximate balance with carbon dioxide and oxygen. Harvesting and milling timber consumes 1 milligram per kilogram of energy, and it only takes 5 kilograms of energy for the material to be worked and finished, whereas steel consumes 42 megajoules per kilogram of energy. And that is before protective and finishing coats are applied. And aluminium consumes 143 megajoules per kilogram to process, meaning that it should be used in a minimal way. Then comes the logical methods of assembly. The elements of construction need to be detailed for ease of retrieval and reuse, which means that materials should be bolted or screwed together for ease of disassembly and reuse, and not nailed, as nails are costly to remove. Likewise, wet trades such as tiling, bricklaying and plastering should use weak jointing mortars so that the materials can easily be retrieved and cleaned for reuse. Lime mortar can be retrieved, and with the addition of more lime, the mortar can be reused, for example. Then there is the appropriate use of materials and methods of construction for thermal performance and comfort within the climate conditions of a region. And the selection of materials and finishes, the use of recycled and plantation-grown timbers used for structure, veneers and plywood is very important in my country. One of the problems, of course, is still some of the glues that are used in the plywood. Through advances in research, the historic use of lime, cement and water-based paints on masonry and timbers are returning to the industry. For colours, colour is quoted, I quote, as the attempt of light to become visible. Colour I use in buildings as a result of the materials I use, the expression of the materials mostly. And there comes structure. It must be appropriate for spans. Materials and technology must provide clarity and economy, achieving spatial logic. Water availability, or rather the lack of water in Australia, and especially in the dry temperate and the hot arid regions of Australia, where it has to be a primary consideration. Provision for the storage of on-site rainwater and constructing systems for the processing of grey water treatment facilities must be for garden and toilet reuse, as well as for firefighting in bushland areas. There must be appropriate site waste management and firefighting systems in place. Fire. Understanding and responding to regional annual bushfire patterns in Australia is critical, and the measures that are required to address such hazards as water inundation of a building, or the use of now inflammable materials, securing gaps within opening elements, providing metal insect mesh screens and solid metal fire screens is now legislated. Waste. Appropriate management systems for grey water and black water treatment and recycling, the responsibility to the environment. Design buildings that respect the above issues, provide the conditions that allow humans and nature to be in balance. They also allow for experiencing the daily patterns and cyclic rhythms of nature, establishing nature's time, the rhythm humans were once with, in sync, rather than buildings that remove humans from nature's time. So sustainability requires going beyond the physical low environmental impact design performance of a building. Sustainability's meaning is devoid of any aspect of life's emotional relationships with the natural elements of nature. In architecture, sustainability alone fails to address the most important aspects of human behaviour, life and experience. As architects, we must address not only low environmental impact design perspective, sustainability, but also those issues that foster human health, performance and productivity by enhancing connections with the natural environment. It is my view that it's the architect's role to discover solutions that are not simply sustainable, but solutions that are responsible to the land, place, culture, climes, flora, fauna, technology and time, working towards the clarification of the essential, an architecture of response rather than the architecture of imposition. My friend Juhani Pallasmaa said, and I quote, "I cannot imagine any other desirable view of the future than an ecologically adapted form of life where architecture returns to the early functional ideals derived from biology. Architecture will again take root in its cultural and regional soil. This architecture could be called ecological functionalism. This view implies a paradoxical task for architecture. It must become more primitive in terms of meeting the most fundamental human needs with an economy of expression and mediating man's relationship with the world, and more sophisticated in the sense of adapting to the cyclic systems of nature in terms of both matter and energy. Ecological architecture also implies a view of a building more as process than a product, and it suggests a new awareness in terms of recycling and responsibility exceeding the scope of life. It also seems that the architect's role between the polarities of craft and art has to be redefined. After decades of affluence and abundance, architecture is likely to return to the aesthetics of necessity, in which elements of metaphorical expression and practical craft fuse into each other again, utility and beauty again united. Within Australia, these are the areas that I have been working. And now down in this area here and down in Tasmania. Going from the monsoonal tropics, 11 degrees south of the equator, down to 42 degrees south of the equator, from the coastal to the inland. I grew up in Papua New Guinea, and this is the environment within which the rainforest produced the materials for all the local people. In Northern Australia, the rainfall and the incredible colour of the greenness. And in Northern Australia, the Aboriginal people, and in the context of the sea, where It's in the monsoonal tropics with cyclonic conditions, with Category 4 to Category 5 cyclones. And we go to the hot arid regions of Australia, and it's a tough landscape. And look how, in the words of our great painter, who said, the elements in the landscape are separated by the light levels. And in the centre of Australia, Uluru, and look at the flora, how it's responding to its place. Look how the flora is looking for light. And look how nature is defined with these beautiful water elements coming down and showing the lowest point towards gravity. And so these beautiful patterns occur on the rocks in Uluru. Or we go into west of Sydney and these incredible xanthorrheas and the stratification of the sandstone rocks. Or in Sydney region, the Angophora costata. And look at the flower, look at the strength, look at the delicacy, look at the transparency, how we can look into our landscape through our trees. Our trees are not dense. Look, they're feathery at the edges. So there's a great power, a legibility, a strength in our flora. Or we get to the coastal regions and we have the melaleucas, these melaleucas that show the condition of the soil, show the water table. Or the coastal areas where you get the pandanus. Or we go to the high country and vast areas of snow. And fire is such an important element in our landscape. And we look at the same tree, the Eucalyptus miniata. Look at this tree, 200 metres apart. This tree is subjected to wind shear, leached soils, little water. Here's the same tree down in the valley, higher water table, high nutrients, less wind pressure. So the tree is very different, even though it's the same tree, very different in the different places. And of course the Aboriginal people knew about placemaking. This is winter time, of course, in the desert. The winter time, the winds are coming from the south, the cooling winds. The fire is in the front here, so the winds are coming over the top and take the smoke away. They want a protection on the back. They want their fronts open. Or we go to the tropics. The Aboriginal person in the tropics, an entirely different building, same materials, where the prevailing wind is this direction, but the heavy rainfall needs to be up off the ground. Little rainfall in this one, heavy rainfall here. And mosquitoes are accompanied by this region. So a fire is put underneath that building here, and the smoke takes away the mosquitoes and keeps the crocodiles away. And this is the forest of Papua New Guinea where I grew up. And look at the buildings. These buildings are truly sustainable, but they also have low impact on all sorts of things. All renewable materials, beautiful architecture, authentic architecture. And look at the men's meeting house. And look, the musical instruments are made out of the timber. And look how all the elements are bound together by vines. And making of the walls where you cannot see inside during the daytime, and from inside you can look out. And look at the process of construction. This beautiful palm split down the middle, taking the palm leaf around and weaving on itself, which then becomes the roof. These are beautiful things. Or you take troggia, as it used to be in the 1960s, or Dubrovnik. They are not much different. Certainly Dubrovnik is not much different today. I visited it after 53 years, and I could take a photograph and it looks much the same as that. These buildings are hundreds of years old. Or we go to the desert, and the desert, they use the hair of the animals, the camel and the donkey and the goat. And that hair, when woven, under heat, it shrinks and provides airspace, and the top surface gets very hot and generates the air movement underneath. This is marvelous. And when it rains, the hairs expand and keep the water out. Or we go to Mesa Verde in the United States, where we can see these wonderful buildings, just extraordinary. And here it is, closer view. This is the winter time. This is the summertime. The people knew that the sun angles, wonderful in wintertime, had to be excluded in summer. These are very direct principles. And I lived in the Greek islands for 6 months, and I learned about the use of materials and the importance of wall and the thermal mass, and the precious material of red oxide was just used for the chapels. This was the most common product. Lime. When lime is slaked, it is extraordinary. It is a disinfectant. It is a light reflector. It is a heat reflector. And it prevents the animals, when you paint the trees, from ring barking the trees. It is an extraordinarily beautiful material. Or we go to Australia, to this fantastic wool shed that has these open walls, and with a little moisture running over it, latent heat of vaporization creates cooling. Or the farmer in the hotter areas, less rainfall, can have the fodder just under a roof. Or in the coastal region, has to put it in a shed because of the rainfall would create spontaneous combustion. The farmer knows where the farmer is. Or in my childhood, all the transport was by aircraft. A fantastic childhood in New Guinea. But look what we do today. Look at this silly building. Look at the silly landscaping. You can paint it any colour you like. You can make it the seasons if you like. It's so stupid. And look, if we build in inappropriate places, the landscape, the flora and the fauna and the landforms will get us. And in Australia, there are all these wind patterns. And we're going up to this area in Darwin here, and look at the wind patterns here. Now, I can't quite see from this position, but with all the winds coming from around Australia, this will be the winter winds on the top, where the winter winds are going from the southeast, and in summertime they come from the northwest. Northwest is same temperatures, very similar temperatures, maybe 5 degrees difference, but the humidity goes from 98% down to 30%. Huge difference. So one can design for these things so that in summertime, no sunshine into the building, only ventilation. And of course the build-up of the tropics, the storms and the huge lightning, and then sometimes the cyclones, and then the rain as it comes down and into the coastal regions via these beautiful rocks and the escarpments of Kakadu region. And of course in this part of the world, very important aspect to the Aboriginal people is the fire stick technology, which is regarded as a method of farming where you burn the landscape every few years. Now we know now that burning the landscape creates a lot of pollution. But what this does is create renewal all the way through, and the forest keeps regenerating. And by doing this, you don't get the wildfires. We have started to learn from this. And in this landscape, these beautiful plants, this is the bush plum. It's called the syzygium. And look at the various wonderful seasons in this part of the world. The Aboriginal people have many seasons. They have what is called the pre-wet season, the season of heavy rain and growth, the season of flowering, which as you can see here, the season of fruiting, the early dry season, and the main dry season. These are important seasons to the Aboriginal people. And the Aboriginal art in their caves. These are the Quincan people. This is the Dighton lady. This is art hundreds, maybe thousands of years old. And the buildings in the tropics, the church that used to have glass in here, one cyclone took all the glass out and it's remained so. A very simple building in this tropical landscape is essentially a platform and a roof. So you get dry, cool area. And this government building, it's all timber slats, 30 millimeters wide by 6 millimeters deep with a 6 millimeter gap. You can't see inside from outside during the day, but you can see from inside out very well. This is extremely important to Aboriginal people, to not be able to be seen inside their environment. This became an incredibly important aspect of the design for an Aboriginal house. And these are some of the early sketches and more sketches. But what I found, my client asked me with this design here, if I want to go to the bathroom at night time, do I have to go outside and am I protected with walls and roof? And I said, no, you've got roof and a floor but not walls. But she said, but how will I be protected from the evil spirits? And so one has to rethink the whole design. And in rethinking design, one goes back to thinking about the plan, the section. And the plan is a section, remember. And like an onion in architecture, there must be these layers. And every time you peel a layer, there is another layer. These are significant aspects in architecture to understand this whole issue. One of the problems today, I've got to say to you young architects, your education is failing you. Absolutely failing you, because you are not learning to draw the eye-hand connection. You should be reading the book by Juhani Pallasmaa, The Thinking Hand, and recognize that connection between the eye and the hand. In 2008, Billy Collins, who was the Poet Laureate for the United States and is now the Poet Laureate for New York, he was asked in an interview, and he was asked, do you write longhand? Do you write manually? Or do you compose at a keyboard? And his answer was, and I want you to think about this as architects, I quote, I always compose by either pen or pencil, only because the keyboard, to me, makes everything kind of look done, look frozen. And writing on a page gives me a feeling of fluidity, that what I am writing is provisional for the moment. And also, since I don't know where the poem is going, and I don't want to know until I get there, I always feel like the poem, as I'm writing it, is working towards some kind of an understanding of itself. That, to me, is a very important aspect of architecture and design and drawing. The ability to perceive and imagine. As Pallasmaa said, how can you get emotion out of a mouse? But you can get emotion out of drawing. Drawings give a lot for the imagination, and it's so fast. Computer is a tool, but it allows you to do the plethora of silly buildings that we see today. I trust, therefore, there are some university people here today. So this is the beginning of the design of the Aboriginal house. Working on aircraft, working at home, working wherever I am. These are the little drawings I do. And you can see all the sun angles, understanding the wind patterns, understanding the sunlight control systems. And these are the drawings that I do. This is just a sketch drawing. But for Aboriginal people, you never enter on axis. You always enter coming to the side and then into the building. If you look at Aboriginal caves, you always enter by the side and ask permission from the guardian spirit. These drawings I refer to as composite sections that show all the way through the building what is happening. And when is one designing in this region, one has to look at the colour of such a building, because we're in the region of bauxite, and bauxite is like iron oxide in colour, and one needs to finish the building in that colour and use a stabilised oxide paint and have the building erected before you send it away. And here is the building. There is the building in this here, and this is the builder's workshop. Transported across Australia, the building under construction. You can see the knee braces here for the overturning moment for the cyclonic conditions, and it occurs also at the ground. And the building in its context. This building is subject to tidal surge of up to 1/2 metre over the site. So the building has to be off the ground to allow the water to pass underneath. And it's more a case of holding the building down, not holding it up. And the building, when completed, the kids use these steps for all breakfasts and lunches. And here is this is the opening day with my client and the children and the 2 builders and my goddaughter. And you can see that the building was prefabricated, everything bolted together, nothing nailed, all screwed together and bolted together on site. This is the building with the kids sitting down looking for television, and television is not looking at the national television, it's looking at television of cultural events. And the parents' bedroom, and culturally the parents sleep to the west of the children sleeping east. It's very important culturally because the west is the end of the day, the sinking sun, and for the parents, nearer to death. For the children, to the east, the rising sun, the beginning of the day, and the future. And the importance for the Aboriginal people to be able to look out and see who's coming and who's going, and look at the horizon to see the weather pattern changes, or to see the movement of animals in the sea. All extremely important. And so each time one is looking into any direction, for the Aboriginal person is to look into the landscape. And the building to resolve the morning sun. So in summertime, no sun comes in, and as the sun rises from this side here, it comes up over the top to go over there and back there. No sun in summertime comes into this house. In wintertime, a little sun comes into the house because it can come down to 24 degrees, and the Aboriginal people like a little warmth, just a little psychology of warmth in the house. And the house is ventilated with these venturis. These venturis are marvellous, designed by an Australian who used to race sailing skiffs, in taking water out of the boat, he thought that you could design something that drew the wind out. So it works on a Venturi basis. And then there's no moving part that's mechanical other than through natural wind systems. A wonderful system for cooling buildings. This building, if there's any complaint by my client, she says it might be just a little bit cool, but it's much better than being so hot they can't even be in the building. And I discovered in the 1990s the Aboriginal house, the traditional building, which is, again, to capture the wind here. This is capturing the wind in this direction, but essentially they're long houses. I'm now moving into Central Australia to the design of a building that didn't go ahead. It is the Broken Hill Mining Museum. And this is the paintings that's showing how the elements of the landscape are separated by the light levels, or looking at the force of the river, and look at the painting and the shapes of these things in the art is very much picked up by this. So the idea of the separation of the elements in the landscape, the strength of the flora and the delicacy of the flora, the power of nature. These are all significant issues in design for me. And looking at cultural traditions, the rammed earth, or looking at a water hole and looking at the methods of evaporation from day to night time, and looking at the process in a material, or looking at the Malcaf and the wind patterns around buildings, are all significant in thinking. Or looking at the earliest of the mining, where the wind shaft went down into here with a wind sail through here, which took the cool air and fresh air down. Or more recently, or later than this period, is this one here. You can direct it into the wind, and with the addition of water, get the whole issue of evaporation, and you get the cooling. Or we look at nature, and look, this is the same tree 6 months apart, and this is the tree in winter time. This is the tree just at the end of summer coming into winter. The summertime, it has the absolutely silver white bark to actually take the heat away from the building, from the tree. But in winter time, it gets cold down to -5, and it wants the heat as soon as it can receive it in the morning. And this is the site in here, and this is the head frame. And I'll go through this more quickly, and I go back to these earlier ideas of light and ventilation, and then the plan of the building that is a building that you enter here at the head frame, which is like going down into a mine, which comes off at different levels, going deeper and deeper into the mine. And in here we have the wheelhouse, we have reception, we have temporary exhibition, permanent exhibition, and then we have curatorial and all other aspects. And then you go to the roof, and then you get up, and the roof is exhibition of all the machinery used in mining. And so these are the early drawings that one does. These are really important drawings for me, and really important drawings to show a client, to show how it's working. And when you go out on a limb like this, you need to have it tested. So the Victorian Technology Centre was commissioned to make a model of this, and you can see all the urban sensors through here. And then they said, look, it works so well, come down, you must see, we'll do a smoke test for you. And because the urban sensors are binned, this early days of computerisation, and seeing that it works, so you must get a positive pressure here, negative pressure, positive pressure moves to negative pressure. And so they put cardboard up here, set a smoke bomb going with the wind blowing. They took the cardboard out, and you can see the air moving very smoothly over and through the building. And so these are some of the photographs of the model. Unfortunately, this building did not proceed. This is a building that both my wife and I are doing, Wendy Lewin. We're doing an equal collaboration. It's in Lightning region. You can see it's up in this area here, and it's right on the border of the hot arid region, where you can capitalise on the use of the Malcaf, the wind catcher with moisture. This is the landscape. the natural landscape, or it's natural here, the cultivated landscape. You may be able to see these are emus coming through, and this is the worked landscape for opal mining. This is the Australian Opal Centre. We are still waiting for this to proceed. These are typical ventilation systems. Being black, the temperatures in this area go up to 45 in summer days, down to 18 at night, and in winter time, nighttime goes down to up to minus 10 degrees, and daytime goes up to 18 degrees. So thermal mass and using the ground is very important. And like any job, the beginning of it is a real mess. And you start to piece it together, and the ideas start to come about thermal mass, usually the ground or the underground as part of it, and looking how a building might develop in this organisation. So you start to organise. Then one does these little drawings and seeing how it might work. These are varying ways of looking at it. And then the sections are really important. And then starting with the planning, so that this is dug into the ground. All of this is below ground level. Part of this is above ground, part of it is below ground. And this is Gondwana landscaping, because that's when opals were formed. This is the coming down here with steps, or by disabled person coming this way into the entry area, then into reception, and then you can come into seeing the curatorial staff here, lecture theatre here. Then you come down a big ramp to go down below into all the smaller sections and the photographic department, and these are all cooling systems running through here with rather large roofs. And there's a section through the buildings. And here's photographs of the model, the roof plan. These are all solar panels. These are the wind catchers. The prevailing winds come this direction, and the solar panels are all facing the sun area. Looking at it from the northern side, looking from the entry coming down through here and into this area here. This is a deliveries area, an escape area here, the malcafs on each side. Here we are coming down the stairs, the ramps coming into the entry area, and this is only a split here for the sake of the model. You can open it up. And then I go now to the north coast to a domestic area. Now we're back into the dwelling, and you can see northern about 33 south. And you can see that the high water table, lots of kangaroos, typical buildings of the region. The early farmhouses, very narrow buildings, allowing ventilation through. The building I designed in 1974, and the plan, the original plan, as constructed. And then I recommend this to all young architects. Avoid designing your own house. Design a decent one for a client and buy it 5 years later. It'll save you a lot of worries. You don't have to put every idea. And so, when I bought this house, I made some additions. Typologies in the region. And of course, as I said earlier, when one makes a building, in 1974 I recognized the importance of designing buildings that can be made adapted to new functions. This building did not lose a single element in its construction. The gable end is now brought out to here. The veranda, which was tallow wood, beautiful northern coastal timber, brought out into this area here. All the elements were reused. The house from the northern side, the sunny side, the house from the southern side. And then the importance of the roof ceiling goes up into there and across there, so you ventilate to prevent the build-up of mold. And the house in the northern side, living room, and this is the southern side living space. Then looking back into the living room of the house. And then dealing with sunlight. I might tell you also, students, do not be afraid of failing. Failing a subject can make you learn it. I failed only one subject at university, sunshine and shade. I really learnt about it. It was a great service for me to have to do it again, where I realised that I could develop systems of sun control. This is facing north. This is the winter sun angle is running down this angle. The equinox sun angle is from that point there to that point there. And the summer angle is that angle there. So that from equinox through winter back into equinox, I've got the most beautiful sunshine coming into the house. From equinox through summer back into equinox, it's shade, and I can control it by the use of the wall systems. So I have the wall system here that has louvers, that has outside louvers, and insect screen. And these are varying systems that allow for this system. So I can develop this, and I can turn the blinds so I can control the light. Now, back into the urban environment. This is in probably the most dense part of Sydney. It's very close to the city. It's called Paddington Wallara area. It's only about 4 kilometres as the crow flies from the city. And it's a very ordinary little house in Paddington here. And you can see here, this is the house as it is, as it was here, and this is the house as it was also, and that's the section of what this house was about. And now we've developed the ground floor in a very simple system here. So you got all the transports coming down here from upstairs. The entry is still in here. We're keeping one room upstairs as the bedroom. We're keeping another room here as a bedroom. This becomes an entry area. Then you can see in the section, you can look from the entry down below, a new garage. The prevailing winds in summertime are coming this direction. You can see in there's an opening that allows the air to come through and discharge, as well as discharge at this level here. This is north, allowing the northern light to come in wintertime, excluding it in summertime, and a garaging down below that. These are, again, some of the drawings I do for my clients. Very fast drawings. Takes me about 3 minutes to do this, which gives them a reasonably good idea of what the house would be like in the entrance area. I recommend to your students, draw, draw, and draw. And so this is now going up into the bedroom area. and into the bedroom and looking out into the landscape, the bedroom, and from here a little view back down through this area here. This is a wind catcher from the northeast to bring air in, and then coming from upstairs down into the living area and trying to maintain that simplicity. Remember, the simplicity is the other face of complexity. It is not about simplistic. It's about the complexity born out in the simplest form, like a very good stock in cooking, that beautiful essence of all the flavors held in a small pot. That is what architecture for me is, to find that simplicity, which includes everything, not leaving anything out, but encompasses everything in the simplest possible way. Then from the living area out into the garden and the water areas. The water pond for cooling. This is wonderful for cooling. And then the house in its context. So working in the cultural context, one is dealing with typology, morphology, materiality, proportion, scale. These are all the aspects that working in the cultural environment. This is now in Sydney. This is our house. My wife and I, Wendy, Lou and I, and designed this alteration. There's the Opera House in this area, Sydney Harbour Bridge, and we're very close to the city. And we have this big building to our east, and the scale comes down to these Federation houses, and we live in this half of a house, which is somewhat unprepossessing little house. But I love the idea of living in something that's incredibly modest, that is not showing what's like inside, that it's totally a surprise. Like when you bite an apple for the first time, you don't know what it's going to taste like exactly. But the sweetness of it all of a sudden reveals itself when you bite it open. And it's white inside, maybe red on the outside. So I love the idea of coming in that bite and inside. And this is the plan of the house as it was: a veranda, a bedroom, a living room, a bathroom, and an outdoor area. And what we've done is we've brought the bathroom to the front. We've got a staircase that goes upstairs to studios and a bedroom. We have a bedroom here and a living, dining, kitchen in this area here. And this is a storage area. Then go down underneath here and we have our studio below. Again, the type of section. And then you see this is now starting to reveal the house. And all these windows are facing east, northeast. Beautiful aspect, but they all have external blinds on them to give sun control. And on entering the house, one looks up the stair, there's a jacaranda tree one sees through there, and then looking out into the living space. And the patterns of light within the house can be rather wonderful. This is the bathroom area. And then our living room, dining room, and looking back from our living room back to the entrance area and the kitchen on the right. And the kitchen, that's our television set. Television placed as it ought to be placed, out of sight. And the method of construction, of components coming in. And the details, 1 to 20 details. And then the development of these windows that my wife and I did. And then the insect screening. Again, the section through the roof lights. Whoops. And then the upstairs area with roof lights, glazing, and rooms within a roof. And the light patterns that can be developed in there. And the glazing and the beautiful refraction of light. And then this is our studio. There's my wife Wendy, and I work just here. The existing stonework retained. In this house, all the bricks that were removed have been reused. All the timbers were reused. The house as it was, the house as it is. Now up into the mountain regions. This beautiful landscape, UNESCO World Heritage listed site. This is the site of this house. That's what you look down into. And you saw Professor Dalco show you the plan of this. But this was one of the first buildings I designed where, like the Aboriginal people, you enter on the edge and you go into the place of refuge. And this is Prospect. North is in this direction here. This is responding to the shape of the rock. And this is the working drawing that I did. And the details done at a very early stage. I don't need a computer to do that. I can do that in around about 5 minutes. And the house under construction. As you can see here, we get inclement weather. It's in the mountains. It's 1,000 meters altitude. Summer temperatures go to 30 degrees. Winter temperatures can go down to around about 0. And beautiful air, and this fronts the World Heritage Site. And then you saw this earlier, but this is the house in the mist. The entrance to the house, across the bridge. The water pond here is for firefighting. It's not a swimming pool, it's a firefighting element. But nature has taken up residence. It's full of frogs and tadpoles, and ducks breed in it, wood ducks. It's a fantastic pond. Does much more than I ever anticipated. Oops. Then the garage and studio, pottery studio. And then the early morning beautiful patterns of light. Again with all the doors open so that one is thrust into the landscape. Essentially one is living on a veranda that's able to be modified. And it is not intended, this is not biomimicry, but there is a relationship when you start to look at the structural systems of here, and you start to look at the structural systems of the trees, and you look at the structural systems of these and the structural systems of the trees, and you start to look at the feathery edges of the roof, and the fineness of edge, and the legibility of the structure, and the house in its context. Light and reflection, and one is always reminded of bushfire. And there's the house, and the house has gone through 2 major bushfires without any damage whatsoever, and the water area has saved not only our house but many other houses in the same area. This is a house now down on the south coast. Again, looking at the landscape, looking at angles of mountains, looking at what I want to see, looking how the valley works. There's the valley, looking at what I want to see. So I start to develop sections, very quick little drawings of how it works. The plan with north, let's see where I am here. North is straight up this direction here. So in summertime, the sun rises here, moves around there and sets back over here. In wintertime, it rises there, up through there and sets there. So it capitalizes on the climatic conditions. Again, drawings and the house in its context. Now, one of the things that most people seem to not understand, these are not just houses as objects in the landscape. If you consider a score of music, there's the composer, then there's the conductor, then there's the performers and the audience. And if you think of architecture that breathes, that allows the perfumes of nature, the sounds of birds, the sounds of water falling on a roof, the sounds of trickling water into a tank, then you start to understand that the building is in a sense an instrument. The occupant is the audience, nature is the score, and the building is also you are the conductor that allows the sounds in, the smells, and the shedding of water. These are really important elements to me. So you see this sort of detail here. I can open all the panels here and I get the beautiful smells of air coming in, and I can get here the bird life. Or I can, if I'm sick, I can lie down in a bay here, a bed bay. This is the equinox sun angle here. In winter time, the sun comes in and gives me great warmth in the house. In summertime, it's excluded. I have a tripartite system here of glass, sliding insect screen, and sliding timber screen. There are three parts to this. The entry area into the kitchen and looking back from the living. This is from the eastern end here, north is this way. Prevailing breezes come this direction. The entry side, big doors slide entirely out of the road. Looking from the dining room back towards the east, looking back into the dining area. And look here, this is so you can open these vents, and the desk is around about 80 millimeters lower, so that it doesn't blow papers away. Then the doors can all open up. And the various systems to allow light and ventilation. Down on the south coast of Sydney, the house that I can't get any more Timica Mirage floor tiles for the extension. Designing in these landscapes is quite difficult. The earliest drawings, then the final presentation of it. The house, I don't know what that thing is doing there, but anyway, we'll move on. Yeah. That is the equinox sun angle, again, through that line there. This house was designed in 1983, built 82, built in 83. This is a project now under construction. Some of these were photographs taken only last week. It is a mosque down in Melbourne for over 1,000 people. And of course the great mosque here, and understanding the mosque, and here I'm working with collaborator Hakan Elevli, of Turkish background, Islamic faith, and an architect. And we are working in association as a collaboration. And I was very interested in the geometries in Islamic architecture. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3. And this comes up time and time again. And and amazing colors in Islamic architecture. And our site is in here. And so these are the very earliest drawings that I did for a discussion with Hakan. And very rough, very fast drawings. And this is the mosque itself. And the mosque faces, this is Mecca at this end, the imam is at this end here, and the practitioners are running across this direction, shoulder to shoulder. Washing areas, ablutions are outside here. And then since we started this, there is the imam's residence, there are women's areas, men's areas, sports facilities, meeting rooms, library, and a small restaurant. Oh, Jesus. Whoops. And these are some of the things that I gleaned from this. And I asked, through my relationship with Hakan, what is this 3 system? Oh, he said, you've discovered this. He said, in our faith, that different parts of Islam, but our part has that there was only one Muhammad. There were not 2 Muhammads. So we work on the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So this building is related to bays of 3 bays by 11 bays, and the roof construction is based on the triangles. Where's the triangle? Fucking hell! So up through here you can see the triangles, and then we decided that the lanterns, like the great mosque at Cordoba, and these are very early drawings showing the mosque in here, and then all the meeting rooms and moving up through here, and these are just development. And this is the women's area upstairs, the main mosque area. The imam is down at this end here. So it the mosque starts to come together. And this shows one bay of the mosque. There are 3 bays this way. And because there are 6 of these, which is an even number, but they're the multiple of 3. So this is the mosque now under construction. And colour is very important. In Islamic architecture, colour can be defined as the attempt of light to become visible. Colour is used in Islamic architecture to reduce the effect of human involvement. And the decoration is used to disguise form and transform and expand space. Repetition of design elements and geometries are important. Colour used green to turquoise, ochre, red, blue, white, black and brown. And they are the silken robe of Muhammad. Green symbolises harmony and peace. It's a sacred colour. Green and gold are the colours of paradise. Green in the Arab world of deserts represent the oasis, which provide the green plants, life-giving, havens of nourishment and cool shelter. Ochre mediates between black and white. Red carries the power of blood and energy, strength, life and fertility. Blue, like the sky, is endless, divine benevolence since early Islam. Gold, saffron and orange, the Enlightenment, divine inspiration. White is purity beyond materiality, like clouds giving of rain. And black is the rich soil where anything can grow. And water, not only for life, but also for reflection. And so these are the earliest of drawings. Very fast, very, very fast drawing. And here is the building now under construction. You can see the lanterns on the east they're yellow, on the north the glass is green, on the west they're orange, on the south they're blue. So as the sun moves through the various periods of the year, the various seasons, so there will be a predominance of that colour within the building. And here, with only 2 of the bays are constructed, in the next week there will be another bay constructed in here. And all these, like the domes, it's the only time I have ever used the colour gold. And it's coming together with rather the feeling of a citadel. And then inside, the very final project, that's where the building stands at this stage. The very final project is the Boyd Centre for Arthur and Yvonne Boyd, which was done with my wife Wendy Lewin and ex-student and friend Reginald Lark. This is south of Sydney, where we are just on the edge of the warm, temperate climate and at 22 metres above sea level. This beautiful landscape, absolutely superb native landscape, essentially untouched by Europeans. And the work of Arthur Boyd, one of our great painters. Arthur used to do all his esquisse work in Australia and take back those early drawings and finish them off in England. So he'd spend 6 months in Australia in the native landscape, and he'd go into the cultivated landscape of England for 6 months a year. And this is the building and the model, and these are existing buildings in this area here. This is a plaza, the main hall, and this is accommodation going down on 2 levels. Again, these are the plans we develop and the sections. And the building in its site. This is the Shoalhaven River. This is north up this way, east is this way direction, straight down the axis of the river. The entry area, and what I learnt in travels and living in Greece for 6 months was the importance of the plaza and the edge, which, whilst there's land in front, once you move back from that edge, it brings the landscape, the water, right into that terrace area. The building in its landscape, we have to collect our own water. We have our own waste treatment plant. All these timbers are recycled timbers. There are no new timbers in any of what you see there. The only new timbers are for cupboard doors out inside, and the floors, which are all plantation-grown timbers. Walking along the corridor and coming into each of the bedrooms, with the areas can be closed off with doors and doors between the spaces. And this is for up to 32 students. from the age of about 10 years of age to 18 years of age as school children. But the building's gone much further than that. The building now is used by everybody, by adults. I have a master class there every 12 months, together with Richard LaPlastria, Britt Anderson, Peter Suchbury and Lindsay Johnston. And we have a most wonderful experience being here. Even though it was designed for children, adults can use it really well. And you can see, looking one way into the cultivated landscape, looking the other way into the native landscape. And look, in the cultivated landscape, the detailing becomes heavier. Where it comes into the native landscape, it becomes finer. So there's a relationship to understand the scale relationships. The building from the south, the building from the east. The bedrooms are to the east because it was the intention for the children to be up by 8 o'clock in the morning, so the sun streaming in from early morning would wake them. And look at you can look through the building. Look, you can see through and look at the rhythm of the landscape. Look at the rhythm of the building. These are the beautiful eucalyptus, or now Corymbium maculata, the most fantastic spotted gum tree. And this is the building in its landscape. Looking from the building down the Solhaven River, or its connection with Boyd's studio. And then down the river again, and then the light patterns, and this is for acoustics, and the acoustics in this building work wonderfully. And again, the dining hall that looks down the river, and the building in its context. I would like to just say, as summing up, architecture for me has nothing to do with the spectacular or novelty, when it can be a sublime statement of human dignity. Great architecture tends to suspend time. It seems to remain timeless and relevant to the present. So as architects, we have both an opportunity as well as a challenge in defining our positions. The freedom to consider what architecture is or what it wants to be is challenging by its openness. The decision about the meanings architecture can convey places a responsibility on the designer, who can determine whether to think afresh, incorporating relevant past as precedents, or to willfully replicate the past. With some thought, I believe that one can discover an architecture that responds to its place, culture, and ecological demands, incorporating appropriate, responsible technological solutions. To achieve this position, as designers, we must not only consider what architecture is, but also ask what an appropriate and responsible architecture of our culture and our time and place is. Success will depend on our building out of our land, with our own heads, style of thought, as Thoreau said, and not some appropriated style of expression. Thank you for your attention.